Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss important issues appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 20th March 2018. Let's begin. On page number 5, the news reads State Not for Religious Minority Tag for Lingayats. Now, the ball is in center's court to notify the status. Here in this news, the state government of Karnataka has decided to accord religious minority recognition to the Lingayats. So this topic of granting religious minority comes within GS paper 2 under the Indian Constitution as it deals with fundamental rights accorded to the minorities, and this topic of Lingayats comes under GS paper 1, basically under Indian heritage and culture. This news becomes very important from UPSC point of view. In this news, the state government of Karnataka has also asked the central government to notify Lingayats under the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. And once the central government notifies this in official gazette, then the religious minority tag will come into effect. The Lingayats and Veerashaiva Lingayats follow the philosophy of 12th century social reformer Lord Basaveswara. In this respect, let us understand about the demand for Lingayat and why have they been demanding the recognition as a separate minority religion status. Lingayatism or Veerashaivism is a religious movement that arose during the 12th century AD. This movement upheld the concept of monotheism or one god and condemned the ostentatious rituals that defined Hinduism. The Lingayats worshipped Lord Shiva. The Lingayats strongly opposed Brahmanical values and rejected the caste system and were also against the concepts of fast, feast, pilgrimage, and sacrifice. In the social sphere, they opposed child marriage and were in favor of allowing remarriage of widows. Thus, it is on these basis that the Lingayats have asked for a separate minority religion status and the state government of Karnataka has accorded them the same. So what does the constitution says on demand for a new religion or demand for minority status? Right to demand a new religion primarily comes within the purview of freedom of speech and expression, as mentioned in Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution. And the decision to include any religion or community as minority religion in India rests with the central government as per the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. And once the central government notifies Lingayats as a different religion or having a minority status, then they are entitled to all the rights and responsibilities as provided in the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India provides for right to freedom of religion covered from Article 25 to 28 and also provides for cultural and educational rights from Article 29 to Article 30. And such freedoms are part fundamental rights and given to all religions in India without discrimination. Article 25 provides for conscience and free profession, practice, and propagation of religion for all persons. Thus, if any community is given the status of a separate religion, then such community enjoys all the rights as provided by the Constitution under Article 25. Article 26 provides for freedom to manage religious affairs, and Article 29 provides for the protection of interest of minorities on the basis of distinct language, script, or culture of their own. Thus, in this news, we saw the fundamental right of right to freedom of religion as well as cultural and educational rights and about the Lingayat community. That is, their ideology was based on the concept of monotheism, that is, one god, and were against the rituals of Hinduism. They worshipped Lord Shiva and strongly opposed Brahmanical values and caste system and were also against the concept of fast, feast, pilgrimage, and sacrifice and opposed child marriage and were in favor of remarriage of widows. In this respect, let us also understand about Lord Basaveswara. Lord Basaveswara or Basava is also known as Bhakti Bhandari, Basavana, and Basaveswara. Lord Basava was born in Bagewadi town in Bagalkot district of Karnataka in the year 1105 AD. He was a statesman during the reign of Kalachuri dynasty, King Bijala I in Karnataka. He was a social reformer and a Kannada poet who promoted Shiva-focused Bhakti movement. Being a reformer, he became the leader of Veerashaiva movement. Now this Veerashaiva movement developed a school of poor priests. It abolished the old priestly class and adopted vernacular medium to propagate their ideas. Basavana spread social awareness mainly through his poetry popularly known as Vachanas. Basva Raja Devara Ragale, written by the Kannada poet Harihara, is the earliest available account on the life of the social reformer. Thus, all these information becomes important from your prelims point of view, as question on Lingayat community may be asked in your prelims examination, and also the ideas on which the Lingayat community is based. That is, they believe in the concept of monotheism, they worship Lord Shiva, and strongly oppose the Brahminical values. This topic becomes important from your prelims examination both from polity section as well as the history and culture section. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 10. Here the news reads, Center plans law on online hate speech. Law Commission asked to make draft. In this news, the Ministry of Home Affairs has asked the Law Commission of India to prepare a draft law on curbing online hate speech. Now, this online hate speech refers to either messages or propagating hate speech through various social media apps. And in this respect, the Law Commission shall deal with offensive messages sent through social media and hate speech propagated through online messaging applications or through social media apps. This decision of the Home Ministry was taken after a committee headed by former Lok Sabha Secretary General T.K. Vishwanathan submitted a report, where in the report it was recommended to provide stricter laws to curb online hate speech. In this article, a reference has also been mentioned about Section 66A of Information Technology Act. This Section 66A penalized sending of offensive messages. However, after a Supreme Court judgment in 2015 in the case of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, this particular section of Information Technology Act was declared as unconstitutional. This particular section was declared unconstitutional because this section was blatantly misused by the government authorities to silence the critics of the government. In this article, a reference has also been made of 267th Law Commission report on hate speech. The Law Commission, in its report on hate speech, suggested adding new provisions in the Indian Penal Code and said that speech inciting hatred or speech which causes fear, alarm, or provocation of violence to be made a criminal offense. The Law Commission has also suggested to insert new section 153C and section 505A into the Indian Penal Code. The proposed sections makes use of violence on grounds of race, caste or community, place of origin, residence, language and customs or practice a punishable offense. And in this respect, the news has also mentioned the Base Barua Committee, which is also proposed to insert two stricter anti-racial discrimination laws in the Indian Penal Code. The Base Barua Committee was also formed by the Ministry of Home Affairs to look into the concerns of persons hailing from Northeast who were living in different part of the country, especially in the metropolitan areas. Thus, this topic becomes very important from your prelims point of view, as question can be asked on Base Barua Committee, 267th Law Commission report on hate speech, and a committee headed by T.K. Vishwanathan, who recently submitted a report which recommends stricter laws to curb online hate speech. And it is on this that the Ministry of Home Affairs has asked the Law Commission of India prepare a draft law on curbing hate speech. And hate speech here includes offensive messages sent through social media apps as well as online messaging apps. This news becomes very important from a polity section of the UPSC syllabus, that is GS paper 2. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 8. Here the news reads, first step in a long journey. The National Medical Commission Bill seeks to make structural changes in an exploitative healthcare system. The issue of health comes within the GS paper 2 of your UPSC syllabus under issues relating to development and management of social sector or services relating to health, education and human resources. Hence, this topic is a part of your UPSC syllabus under GS paper 2. So let us understand what the author has tried to suggest in this particular article. The author in this article in a way has said that India currently faces a severe health crisis and the reasons for such a crisis are, firstly, shortage of doctors across the country at different level of healthcare centers and hospitals at primary, secondary, as well as at the tertiary level. And also lack of specialist doctors, especially in the rural areas, primarily at primary health center and secondary health center. And it is because of these lack of specialist doctors that patients from primary and secondary health center has to travel to the tertiary health center. Lack of proper medicines, especially at the primary and secondary healthcare centers, or mainly in the, that is lack of proper medicine mainly in the rural India. Thus, this lack of specialist doctors as well as lack of proper medicines has become one of the main reasons for an acute health crisis. Another important reason is overburdened hospitals. There are not sufficient hospital beds for the number of patients which are there in such hospitals. And because of this lack of specialist doctors and proper medicines, the quality of healthcare also is in a dilapidated condition, especially in the rural areas. The next reason facing the severe health crisis is lack of quality medical colleges providing quality education. Most of the medical institutions imparting medical degrees are in the private sector. And some of these private medical colleges have been providing substandard medical education. And because of substandard medical education, the quality of students who are coming out of such colleges are not very good. These lack of quality medical colleges in the private sector has also risen due to corruption in getting licenses. And because of this corruption, they are bound to charge high capitation fee from the students. Another problem facing these colleges are that they lack quality teachers or professors, and also they face lack of adequate infrastructure necessary for a medical college. Thus, the government, to regulate all these issues pertaining to the medical education, has proposed the National Medical Commission Bill 2017. The National Medical Commission Bill 2017 aims to provide for a medical education system that ensures availability of adequate and high quality medical professionals. Secondly, that encourages medical professionals to adopt latest medical research in their work and to contribute to research. Hence, the bill has emphasized on the concept of a quality education through providing quality medical professionals and has emphasized on the adoption of latest medical research and to contribute to research that has an objective periodic assessment of medical institutions. Thus, it also provides for an objective periodic assessment of medical institution and facilitates maintenance of a medical register for India and enforces high ethical standards. Thus, this bill also aims at a high ethical standard in all aspects of medical services, that is flexible to adapt to changing needs and has an effective grievance redressal mechanism. Hence, this is very important in the bill that it also provides for an effective grievance redressal mechanism. The aim of the bill is to provide quality education through quality medical professionals, also emphasizes on the need for latest medical research. It provides for objective periodic assessment of medical institutions. It provides for high ethical standard in medical services, as well as it also provides for an effective grievance redressal mechanism. Thus, it is with these aims that National Medical Commission Bill 2017 has been proposed to be legislated. The bill further aims to establish a National Medical Commission, and the bill also grants certain powers and function to this commission. The commission shall perform the following functions, namely lay down policies for maintaining high quality and high standards in medical education and make necessary regulations, lay down policies for regulating medical institutions, medical researches and medical professionals and make necessary regulations, assess the requirements in healthcare. Hence, these three functions are very important with respect to the National Medical Commission. Assess the requirements in healthcare, including human resources for health and healthcare infrastructure, and also develop a roadmap for meeting such requirements. It further says that to promote, coordinate, and frame guidelines and lay down policies by making necessary regulations for proper functioning of the National Medical Commission. And it also provides for the constitution of autonomous boards and state medical council. Thus, the bill provides ample powers as well as function to these National Medical Commission to achieve the aims provided in the National Medical Commission Bill. And in this respect, the bill also provides for a national eligibility cum entrance test and examination, that is NEET examination as you know it. It says there shall be a uniform national eligibility cum entrance test for admission to an undergraduate medical education in all medical institutions which are governed by the provision of this act. And in this respect, it is the commission which shall conduct the NEET exam in English and such other languages through such designated authority in such manner as may be specified. Thus, the Commission provides for an entrance test to all such public institutions. It is important to know that the bill also provides for a national license examination, and this examination is basically an exit examination. It means that all those students who have completed their degree course shall take this examination, and the granting of license would depend on passing of this particular exam, that is exit exam. It reads, the commission shall conduct a uniform national licentiate examination for students graduating from the medical institutions for granting license to practice medicine as medical practitioners and for enrollment in the state register or the national register. Thus, this bill for the first time introduces the concept of exit examination. The author has suggested that the new bill will provide a much stricter regulatory regime to regulate the medical profession. A quality institutional regime will also ensure that quality doctors are entering the field of medical practice. And it is in this respect the author suggests that these trained MBBS candidates can be sent across the country to various healthcare centers in India. Thus, these quality doctors in rural India will solve the problem of lack of doctors in the region, and it will also help in providing quality medical healthcare facilities. In this respect, the author has also suggested to incorporate all the registered Ayush doctors at various public healthcare centers. This, this incorporation of registered Ayush doctors will further improve the medical facilities at these public healthcare centers. Ayush in this respect stands for Ayurveda, Yoga and Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy. Thus, we see in this particular news, the author has given reasons for severe health crisis in India and also suggested that the National Medical Commission Bill will provide a stricter regulatory regime and help in solving the issues pertaining to the medical profession in India. This topic becomes important both from your pre as well as from your mains exam point of view. And as we have seen, this comes within the GS paper 2 of your UPSC syllabus. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 9. Here the news reads, time to move beyond subsidies. The US complaint to the WTO against India's export promotion schemes is a wake up call. Now, as you can see, recently questions have been asked in the year 2015 as well as in the year 2017 on WTO. We'll see these questions after going through this particular news. Recently, the United States Trade Representative has challenged India's export promotion scheme in the World Trade Organization. The US Trade Representatives stated that India is violating commitments under the agreement on the SCM agreement, that is, Subsidies and Countervailing Measures Agreement, by using 5 of its export promotion schemes. The Subsidies and Countervailing Measures Agreement of the WTO prohibits granting of export subsidies, as it may lead to trade distortions. However, this provision is not applicable to those developing countries whose GNP, that is, gross national product per capita, is less than $1,000. But India has crossed this particular threshold, and now it is required to eliminate its export subsidies as per the SCM agreement. Earlier, in the year 2010, US had challenged India. Then the US questioned the export incentives provided to textiles and clothing sector. As per the SCM agreement, any developing country which had reached export competitiveness in one or more products, then such country must gradually phase out their export subsidies. In this respect, the US had argued that textile and clothing sector had a share in global trade exceed 3.25%. Hence, these two particular sectors were more than export competitive, or in other words, it formed a huge chunk of global trade. 3.25% of global trade is considered to be a good percentage share. Thus, the US had argued that textile and clothing sector had a share in global trade, and therefore it has become export competitive. Since it had become export competitive, then India should gradually phase out the export subsidies provided to the textile and clothing sectors. A similar situation seems to appear now as per the SCM agreement, which prohibits granting of export subsidies. Now, looking at the WTO policies, even India's policymakers recognized that the foreign trade policy should now shift its focus from export promotion subsidies to more fundamental systematic measures. And this particular policy was also reiterated in the mid-term review of foreign trade policy of 2015-20. However, despite this, the government has continued to increase its expenditure on export promotion schemes. For example, outlays for the Merchandise Exports of India scheme, which aims to provide infrastructure support and subsidies to MSMEs and other small sectors, that is, micro, small, and medium enterprises, and other small sectors for the promotion of merchandise exports. Thus, the author suggests that the need of the hour is to shift away from export subsidies to creation of trade related infrastructure. This topic of export subsidies becomes important from your economy section of the UPSC syllabus. Coming back to the question, now similar questions have been asked previously on WTO. The question asked in 2015 is the terms agreement on agriculture, agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and peace clause appear in the news frequently in the context of affairs of Food and Agriculture Organization, United Nations Framework Conference on Climate Change, World Trade Organization, United Nations Environment Programme. We know that these appear in the context of WTO. A similar question can be asked on SCM, that is subsidies and countervailing measures. That it appears in the context of, again the answer would be WTO. Now this question was asked in the year 2017. Consider the following statements. India has ratified Trade Facilitation Agreement of WTO. Yes, Trade Facilitation Agreement is part of WTO's Bali Ministerial Package of 2013. Yes, TFA came into force in January 2016. No, TFA came into force February 2017, following its ratification by two-thirds of the WTO membership. Thus, this news on subsidies and countervailing measures becomes important with respect to WTO, and also questions can be expected in the prelims examination of the UPSC. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appear on page number 8. The news reads, to be fighting fit. In this news, the author highlights several structural problems in defense sector. The author suggests that the current capital allocation in the budget is insufficient and the budgetary allocation needs to be increased. It says that 68% of army's equipment is in vintage category or very old and needs to be urgently upgraded. Author also highlights that the process of acquisition of new weapons is slow due to lack of budget allocation and time delay in acquisition. The author further suggests that there is a lack of acknowledgement of two front war on behalf of the government. In this scenario, it is important to understand that a two front war is a hypothetical scenario of India engaging in war with both Pakistan and China. And the author has also suggested that the civilian leadership is overlooking the need to prepare for a two front war. The author further suggests that there is a lack of holistic view in border management, and in this respect, the army and border guarding forces such as BSF, ITBP, etc., needs to be synchronized in border management techniques. There is also a lack of embrace of new technology by the Indian government in defense acquisition, and in this respect, armed forces need to embrace the concept of new technology such as artificial intelligence for enhancing capabilities. And on the aspect of civilian military relationship, the author suggests that there is a great lack of synchronization between military leadership and civilians in the Ministry of Defense. This topic comes under internal security of your UPSC syllabus. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next important news appears on page number 13. The news reads, is government turning a deaf ear to Banks Bureau? In this respect, let us understand about Banks Board Bureau. The Banks Board Bureau was announced by the Union government in August 2015 as part of 7-point Indradhanush mission to revamp the ailing public sector banks. It was set up on the recommendation of PJ Nayak committee. Hence, this part becomes important from your prelims point of view. And this Nayak committee was formed to review governance of boards of banks. Now, in this respect, let us understand the various functions as performed by the Bank Boards Bureau. It provides recommendations for appointment of full-time directors as well as non-executive chairman of public sector banks. It gives advice to such public sector banks in developing differentiated strategies to raise funds through innovative financial methods. It further provides advice to deal with issues of stressed assets. It also guides banks on the issue of merger and acquisition and also suggests different ways to address the issue of non-performing assets. Thus, the topic of Bank Boards Bureau becomes important from your UPSC prelims point of view. And you must remember that it was constituted on the recommendation of PJ Nayak committee. This topic forms part of economy section of your UPSC syllabus. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.